Hello. Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. Wow. Those of you who made some noise when I came out will be blessed. These days, I'm doing a book-related program on another channel, and once after the recording ended and I was coming out, people only cheered for the other person who is the same age as me. You know who it is, right? Mr. Sul-min-suk. Yes, Mr. Sul-min-suk is the same age as me. I don't like this reaction. I believe middle-aged bodies should have this kind of authenticity. Now, I actually have two academic advisors. When I was in graduate school, I had one advisor during my master's program in Korea, and then another advisor while I was studying abroad. Both of those professors asked me about a certain number. I asked my Korean advisor about it. I asked, why do I have to learn things like this? And my Korean advisor, more than 20 years ago, told me, in the end, as cognitive psychologists, we each study one number about people and then move on. That's what he said to me. But then, about 10 years later, when I moved to study in the US and had a talk with my academic advisor on this topic, he actually told me what that one number I needed to find out was. By then, I had already given up on math. Now, today's topic is about numbers. I'm here today to talk about one number that we, as humans, especially we Koreans living in Korea, absolutely need to know. Now, Jewish psychologists often say this to me, hey, you guys are actually smarter. In fact, most studies show that Koreans have one of the highest IQ average in the world. One of the best, actually. The unimpressed reaction you're showing right now is the proof. No one actually thinks they're smart. That's why, in reality, Koreans, especially Korean men, tend to blur the last digits of two numbers. Those numbers are height and IQ. Right? When a guy is asked, how tall are you? He'll say, I'm 170 something, you know. And the second number is IQ. Hey, what's your IQ? Then he'll go, it's 120 something, like that. But in reality, if you say your IQ is 120 something, people in Korea usually don't consider that a high IQ. Even that oneself doesn't really think so. It's not considered a good IQ. And what's even funnier is the reaction of the person that asked. Not the best brain for studying. People actually say such things. We should take norms and standards into account, but actually 120 is a really good IQ, if you look at it by global standards. In fact, even among Nobel Prize-winning physicists worldwide, the majority have IQs in the 120s. But we only remember Einstein. Just because he reportedly had an IQ over 180, we even only drink Einstein-branded milk. Am I right? Yes, because he was a genius. So we put people on a pedestal, almost like they're gods, and assume that it's only natural for them to be exceptional in physics or mathematics or whatever their talents are, and that they're fundamentally different from us. In a way, we do this to comfort ourselves. Now, aside from being smart and outstanding, Koreans have another unique characteristic. When you look into the research, it's actually quite interesting. From a personality perspective, there are hardly any optimistic people. So people are very susceptible to stress. That's right. If you're not easily stressed, please raise your hand. Yes, I can see some hands. Well, you just haven't seen enough of the world yet. No, that's not it. I was just kidding, sorry. In reality, we all have a lot on our minds. Those who aren't anxious the day before an exam, please raise your hand. Anyone? I can see some hands. All right. But you know, there are questions like these. In fact, in our country, especially among adults, only a handful can raise their hand to these kinds of questions. However, there are many countries where almost everyone raises their hand to such questions. One of the best examples is Nigeria in Africa. Why is it actually the highest in terms of optimism? In our brains, there is a neurotransmitter called anandamide. When a lot of such substances are released, you feel good, and when they are released steadily, that's what makes you optimistic. But in terms of production per unit area of brain cells, Nigeria actually has the highest amount. Korea ranks last in the world. So, what does this mean? It means that, hardware-wise, our brains themselves don't become happy easily, whereas people in Africa are optimistic. So what does that imply? It means that even with less, you can become happy. But when we Koreans, who are not optimistic, look at optimistic Africans, We can't see their optimism. So everyone just appears a certain way to us. We think they aren't diligent. And, that's what we tend to say. But that's not true. They are just optimistic. It means they can become happy even with little. Now, shall we try turning this idea around for a moment? Let's try an experiment to look at this from the opposite perspective. There's a saying among us that Koreans don't even follow the theory of Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002. So, 2 games. In Game A, you have a 100% chance of winning 100 million won. In Game B, you have an 89% chance of winning 100 million won, a 10% chance of winning 500 million, and a 1% chance of nothing. You get the idea, right? Now, you can only play one of the 2 games, A or B, today. Which one would you choose? People are already divided like this. See, this is what I mean when I say the theory is falling apart. Well, there's no right or wrong between these two. Anyways, those of you that choose A, please raise your hand. A, very good. Those with B, hands up please. Very good. There are slightly more people choosing B, right? About a ratio of 4 to 6. There's no other country in the world where so many people choose B like this, except ours. This is actually a fascinating phenomenon. Now, I can make everyone here choose A. Game A, 1 billion won, 100% chance. Game B, 1 billion won, 89%. 5 billion, 10%. Nothing, 1%. In this case, everyone would go with A, right? Anyone hesitating? Oh my, some of you actually are. Wow, the audience here at SEBASI really do think on a grand scale. This is a billion won, you know. Even if you just get an annual interest rate of 2%, that's 20 billion in interest per year. This means if you don't take a single day off for all 365 days of the year and spend 55 million won every single day working diligently and faithfully, you would barely be able to keep your wealth from increasing. I'm sorry. Why am I getting angry? It's just that the people over there were actually hesitating about this. Well, you all will have to choose option A. It's amazing some of you need to be convinced of this. Now, in almost all research and theories, and even at the national level, they reduce the 1 billion won in Game A to 1/100th. Then that's 1 million won. $1,000. This is the amount that researchers typically use as the standard. So for option B, it would also be 1 or 5 million. Even with these amounts, in most other countries, no, in almost every country, 90% of adults choose A. But here, it's different. What's even funnier is, if you ask third-year middle school students, these kids, you can even get a split of 8 to 2. These kids who don't even have 20,000 won in their wallets. Yet, even more confidently than us adults, the moment they see 100 million won in Game A, they react like this. They just quit, saying, 100 million won? That's nothing. Ugh, it's not even worth a house. I'm going for option B. Now, shall we find out why that is? I mentioned this before. We're the least optimistic people in the world. Our brains don't produce enough neurotransmitters that make people feel good. So, for us Koreans, in order to feel the same level of happiness that the most optimistic people in the world, like those in Africa or Nigeria, who have a lot of these neurotransmitters, are feeling right now, we would have to possess the most in the world. And what do we have to do to have the most in the world? We have to work hard. We have to live diligently. That's why Koreans are the most diligent people in the world. We are overwhelmingly diligent. We just don't realize it because we're among ourselves right now. Whenever foreign researchers talk about this, I actually ask them back. What do you mean? If you look at our rivals, Japan, China, Taiwan, these countries are also extremely diligent when it comes to work. When you see them at work, those people are the same. And then those foreign psychologists say this to me. They can't write it in papers, but they tell me very honestly, we don't just analyze the work times. If we analyze people's leisure time too, you're off the chart. Even to those 3 countries. They say Korea is the only country where mothers scold their children at amusement parks. Is that all you can enjoy? Play more properly. I bought you an unlimited pass. They say things like that. And the adults are even more diligent. European psychologists I meet at conferences come to me and complain. Some almost whine. Not long ago, a European psychologist I met came up to me and said this: "When you Koreans come to Europe to visit, you're dressed like tourists, but your behaviors are like that of workers." Why on earth would someone wake up at 4:30 in the morning during their own vacation? So I asked, "Don't people in other countries wake up that early?" And he said, 8 is the maximum, because it's a vacation. Then, another psychologist who was listening to this conversation said this to me. He even brought data with him, just to show me. As he showed me this, he said to me, "Rental car company employees in Europe say that when they see an Asian tourist return a rental car after a week, just by looking at the number of kilometers driven, they can immediately tell if the customer is Korean." Now, shall we sum this up? So, according to foreign psychologists, the image of Koreans is that they are the smartest people in the world, living the most diligently, but without optimism. So, our country is the most diligent in the world, and with this incredible industriousness and sincerity, we have transformed the nation in less than 70 years since the war ended. Our parents' generation worked incredibly hard, and although you are their children, the current generation of parents has also worked extremely hard, and even our young friends today are living very diligently. But here, there is one number we need to think about, one figure that we are overlooking. The reason is that when I first went to study abroad, I couldn't answer that question from my American advisor. I couldn't answer because I didn't know that number. In our country, being extremely diligent and working hard has become such an important value that it's not just considered one of the good values, but the most excellent, important, and absolute value. We call such a value good. So, the opposite of good would be evil. So in our country, simply not being diligent is considered a perfectly sufficient condition for being evil. Now, but think about it. As we live our lives, we live all these bad and evil things without being diligent. With our own diligence and sincerity, we study hard, work hard, and then sweat to take care of our families. What is the furthest thing you do out of those 24 hours? Sleeping. It's sleeping. That's why in the whole world, our culture is the one that treats sleep as a sin the most. Even I was skeptical at first, but after research, I found that our country is the one that regards sleep as a sin the most and tries to avoid it. I also did some research myself. Only in our country do people use this kind of outrageous insult. How can you sleep at a time like this? It's a terrifying insult. Why? Psychology has studied humans for 200 years, and one of the most important findings is this. What is the most certain and cruel way to torment a person? It's depriving them of sleep. But in our country, so many people say things like that. When I was studying in the US, my American juniors weren't studying at all, so I told them to sit down and once said, "How can you sleep at a time like this?" "Tom, are you sleepy? Can you really sleep at a time like this? Can you sleep well?" As soon as I said that, he replied to me, "Yes, I can." So he didn't realize that this was meant as a criticism. But what is it that someone who doesn't sleep can't do the next day? Is it that they can't solve math problems? Or is it that they can't solve language arts problems? No. Over the past 100 years, we've studied sleep. And what we've found is that people who don't sleep aren't unable to solve problems the next day. Instead, they're in the most dangerous state, where they're likely to reveal their bad habits in front of others. That's the problem. So it's not that you can't solve math problems, but rather that all your bad habits related to math come out. You try to calculate quickly and avoid thinking deeply. And you, quite unexpectedly, strangely change correct answers. That's why you end up thinking you're bad at math. You need to understand your own sleep. When I first went abroad to study, my advisor suddenly asked me this question less than 30 minutes after we met. "How many hours do you sleep?" It was the first time I'd ever been asked a question like that. I'd only ever heard that I should sleep less and cut down on sleep. I asked him back, "Why?" Then he asked me, "Why is this question so unusual? How many hours do you need to sleep to be at your sharpest and happiest the next day?" That's what he was asking. You need to figure this out. It's the most important number in your life. Today, for our young friends, try to rate how good you feel today. And next to that, write down how many hours you slept the night before. And parents, please also write down how good your relationship with your child was today. You can use ABC ratings or a 10-point scale. How many hours did you sleep? Write down the number of hours you slept last night. This will take you less than 10 seconds. And try doing this for just 1 year. If you look over it for just 3 minutes, those 365 pairs of data from the year will reveal how many hours of sleep you need to be happiest, wisest, and to maintain the best possible relationship. These days, not only psychologists, but many researchers refer to sleep as a third personality or character, and most people are born with a natural amount of sleep they need. Some people need 4 hours of sleep, while others need 10 hours. In the past, we used to think that sleeping only 4 hours was good, and sleeping 10 hours meant you were living a bad life. But people who sleep 4 hours, and those who sleep 10 hours each, have things that suit them best. Some studies show that creative people tend to sleep more, and countless studies are emerging that suggest the more you sleep, the better the connectivity in your brain becomes. Now, if you get to know yourself and your child, if you get to know something that is perhaps even more important than your blood type or personality, through the small habit of recording these 2 numbers for the next year, then at last we will finally be able to unlock the ultimate secret. How many hours of sleep were you born to need? And you will be able to unlock the secret to when you are truly happiest. That is why I am here today, to talk about this most important number we have discovered, sleep. That concludes my talk. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes.